Karen Whitmore stood in her pristine white robe, arms crossed, watching 20,000 gallons of liquid stone pour into her neighbor's brand-new swimming pool. She'd waited 3 months for this moment. 3 months of sleepless nights, property value, anxiety, and mounting rage. As the last of the concrete disappeared into the crystal-clear water, transforming dreams into a gray tomb, Karen smiled. She had no idea that Marcus had installed security cameras the week before, or that his lawyer was already on speed dial, or that her act of suburban warfare would cost Marcus Thompson had always believed that good neighbors were the foundation of a happy life. Standing in his backyard on that warm Tuesday morning in April, watching the excavation crew break ground for his swimming pool, he felt the familiar surge of satisfaction that came with a plan coming together. The kidney-shaped hole would be 18 feet at its deepest point, perfect for his daughter Emma's diving practice when she came home from college. "Looking good, Mr. Thompson," called out Jimmy Reeves, the crew foreman, as his men worked to shape the cavity. "Should have this beauty finished by Memorial Day, just like you wanted?" Marcus nodded, sipping his coffee as he surveyed the progress. At 42, he'd worked hard to afford this house in Maple Grove Estates, a testament to 15 years of 60-hour weeks at the architectural firm. The pool was his gift to himself, and more importantly, to Emma. She'd been the star of her high school swim team before heading off to Northwestern. On a partial scholarship, the sound of a throat clearing made him turn. Karen Whitmore stood at the property line, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. She wore a cream-colored cardigan that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payments, and her expression carried the particular brand of displeasure that only came from HOA board meetings and property disputes. "Marcus," she said, her voice carrying across the 10 feet that separated their yards, "I need to speak with you." He'd known this was coming. Karen had been his neighbor for 3 years, ever since he'd moved in after the divorce. She was the self-appointed guardian of Maple Grove's pristine aesthetic. The woman who measured grass height with a ruler and kept a laminated copy of the HOA regulations in her purse. "Morning, Karen," he said, walking toward the fence. "Beautiful day for construction, isn't it?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "That's exactly what I want to discuss. This pool project of yours. What about it? I submitted all the proper paperwork to the city and the HOA. Everything's been approved. Approved by bureaucrats who don't have to live next to an eyesore," she snapped. "Do you have any idea what this is going to do to my property values? The noise, the disruption, the parade of workers trampling through our peaceful neighborhood?" Marcus set down his coffee cup on the fence post. "The construction will be done in 6 weeks, and then it'll be quiet again." "6 weeks," she laughed, but there was no humor in it. 6 weeks of jackhammers and cement mixers and God knows what else. And then what? Pool parties, screaming children, the smell of chlorine drifting into my garden? Karen's voice took on a sharp edge, the one who comes home twice a year and treats the whole neighborhood like her personal playground. "I remember last summer's quiet gathering that went until 2 in the morning. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Music that stayed within noise ordinance limits and cleanup completed by midnight. But Karen had called the police anyway, claiming the laughter was disturbing her sleep. "Look," he said, keeping his voice level, "I understand change can be difficult, but this is my property, and I have every right to improve it within the legal guidelines. The pool will actually increase property values for the whole neighborhood." "Don't lecture me about property values," Karen shot back. "I've been living in Maple Grove for 15 years. I was here when this place was something special, before it became a revolving door for divorced men and their weekend children." The words hit like a physical blow. He'd won shared custody, but the accusations still stung. "I think we're done here," he said quietly. "Oh, we're far from done," Karen replied. "I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting. This pool project is going to be reviewed again, and this time, I'm going to make sure the board understands exactly what's at stake." She turned on her heel and marched back toward her house, leaving Marcus standing at the fence. Behind him, the excavation crew continued their work. "Your neighbor seemed pretty steamed. She'll get over it," Marcus said, but even as he spoke the words, he wasn't sure he believed them. Karen Whitmore had a reputation in the neighborhood. She'd successfully blocked 3 other improvement projects in the past 5 years, including the Martinez family's deck expansion and the Johnsons' fence renovation. Each time, she'd found some obscure regulation or procedural technicality to exploit. "We've dealt with difficult neighbors before," Jimmy said. "Usually they calm down once they see how nice the finished product looks." Marcus nodded, but something in Karen's expression haunted him. This wasn't just about property values or construction noise. Marcus tried to focus on work, setting up his laptop on the kitchen table and diving into the blueprints for a new office complex downtown. But every few minutes, he found himself glancing out the window toward Karen's house. Around noon, his phone rang. Emma's picture filled the screen, a photo from her last swim meet. Goggles pushed up on her forehead, grinning with the unconscious confidence of youth. "Hey, Dad," she said, her voice bright with excitement. "How's the pool coming along, right?" "On schedule," he said, stepping outside where he could see the progress. "The hole's about halfway done. Should be ready for your first swim when you get home for summer break. I can't wait. I've been telling everyone at school about it. Sarah wants to come visit just to see it." Marcus smiled despite his lingering worry about Karen. This was why he was building the pool, for moments like these, when Emma's happiness was so pure and infectious that it reminded him why every sacrifice had been worth it. "Your old man's pretty excited too," he said. "It's been a long time since we've had a proper place to hang out during your visits. Dad, you know I love spending time with you no matter what, right? The pool is just a bonus." "I know, sweetheart. But it'll be nice to have something special here." After they hung up, Marcus felt renewed determination. Karen could call all the meetings she wanted. The pool was legal, properly permitted, and being built by licensed contractors. There was nothing she could do to stop it. He was wrong. The first sign of trouble came at 3 p.m., when a city inspector arrived unannounced. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as the man walked around the construction site, taking photos and making notes on a clipboard. Jimmy Reeves approached him, and Marcus could see the confusion on the foreman's face as they spoke. 20 minutes later, Jimmy knocked on Marcus's door. "We've got a problem," he said. "The inspector says there's been a complaint about our permits. Someone's claiming we don't have proper approval for the electrical work." "That's impossible," Marcus said. "I have all the permits right here." Spreading them across the kitchen table, Jimmy examined the papers, his frown deepening. "These all look good to me, but the inspector says he needs to verify everything with the main office. Could take a few days." "A few days? You're supposed to start pouring concrete tomorrow." "I know, boss, but if we keep working without proper clearance, we could get shut down completely. Better to wait it out." Marcus stared at the permits, his mind racing. Everything was in order. He'd triple-checked every document, every signature, every fee. There was only one person who could have triggered this inspection. He looked out the window toward Karen's house. She was standing in her front yard pretending to water her already perfect flower beds while watching the commotion in his backyard. When she saw him at the window, she offered a small wave and what might have been a smile. "Pack it up for today," Marcus told Jimmy. "I need to make some phone calls." It took 3 hours of bureaucratic phone tag to reach the right person at the city planning office. Yes, there had been a complaint. No, they couldn't reveal who had filed it. The permits appeared to be in order, but procedure required a full review whenever concerns were raised about public safety. "Hard to say," the clerk replied. "Could be a week, could be." Marcus woke up Monday morning to the sound of chainsaws. He stumbled to his bedroom window, still groggy from a restless night, and felt his stomach drop. A city tree removal crew was working methodically through the row of mature oaks that lined the street between his property and Karen's. The trees had been there for decades, their canopy providing shade for both houses and a natural buffer between the yards. "What the hell?" he muttered, pulling on clothes and rushing outside. The crew foreman, a weathered man in his 50s, looked up from his clipboard as Marcus approached. "Morning. You the homeowner?" "Yes. What's going on here?" "Why are you cutting down these trees?" "Got a work order for hazardous tree removal. Complaint came in about diseased branches, threatening power lines and property damage." Marcus looked up at the trees. They were healthy specimens, their spring leaves bright green and full. "These trees aren't diseased." "Who filed the complaint?" The foreman shrugged. "Don't know, don't ask. City arborist marked them for removal last week. Should have gotten a notice in the mail." "I never received any notice." "Take that up with the city." We're just here to do the job." Marcus watched in horror as another magnificent oak crashed to the ground, its trunk easily 3 feet in diameter. The tree had been planted before he was born, had weathered countless storms, provided habitat for birds and squirrels, and kept his house cool during brutal summer heat waves. "How many are you taking down?" "All of them along this stretch." 7 trees total, 7 trees. Decades of growth, destroyed in a single morning. Marcus pulled out his phone and called the city forestry department, but got voicemail. Then he called David Chen. "She can't do this," he said when his lawyer answered. "These trees are on public property. She doesn't have the authority to have them removed." "Actually, any resident can file a complaint about potentially hazardous trees," David replied. "If a city arborist confirms the danger, they have to remove them. It's a liability issue. But there's no danger. These trees are perfectly healthy. Then you need to file a countercomplaint and request an independent assessment." "But Marcus, if the trees are already being cut down, it might be too late." It was too late. By noon, all 7 trees were gone, leaving behind only stumps and sawdust. The street looked naked, exposed, like a war zone. Marcus's house, which had been nestled in cool shade, now baked in the direct afternoon sun. Worse, Karen's house now had an unobstructed view directly into his backyard, where the abandoned pool excavation sat like an open wound. Marcus knocked on Karen's door. She answered, wearing a pale yellow dress that made her look like a concerned grandmother, complete with pearls and a gentle smile. "Marcus," she said, "I heard about the trees. Such a shame. I tried to save them, but apparently the city arborist found some kind of fungal infection. Cut the act. Karen, we both know you filed that complaint." Her expression didn't change. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean. I care about this neighborhood's natural beauty as much as anyone. You had those trees removed so you could spy on my property, so you could monitor every move I make." "That's a very paranoid way of thinking," she said. "Perhaps the stress of your construction delays is affecting your judgment." Marcus felt his hands clench into fists. "This isn't over." "Oh, Marcus," Karen said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I'm afraid it is. The HOA board voted last night to extend the review period for your pool project. We've discovered several additional compliance issues that need to be addressed." "What issues?" "The excavation has created a safety hazard. An open pit like that could injure children or pets. The board has a liability concern that requires immediate attention." Marcus stared at her, understanding dawning. "You want me to fill in the hole?" "Temporarily, yes, until all permits and safety protocols are properly satisfied. That would cost me thousands of dollars in additional excavation fees. I'm sorry, but safety must come first. The notice will be delivered tomorrow morning." She started to close the door, but Marcus put his hand against it. "I know what you're doing," he said. "You're trying to force me to abandon the project, but I won't give up. I'll fight every ridiculous rule, every petty complaint, every bureaucratic obstacle you throw at me." Karen's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "You have no idea what you're up against, Marcus. I've been perfecting this for years. Ask the Martinez family, ask the Johnsons, ask the Hendersons, who moved away rather than deal with the constant inspections and violations I arranged for. Them, you're admitting to harassment." The mask slipped back into place. "I'm admitting to being a conscientious neighbor who takes property values and community standards seriously. If that makes me unpopular with people who want to turn our neighborhood into their personal playground, so be it." Marcus left Karen's porch with a new understanding of his enemy. This wasn't just about the pool anymore. Karen had been driving out neighbors who didn't conform to her vision of Maple Grove perfection. She'd turned the HOA into her personal weapon and the city bureaucracy into her enforcement arm. But two could play the research game. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with his laptop, diving deep into public records and city databases. If Karen had been filing complaints for years, there would be a paper trail. If she'd been manipulating the HOA, there would be evidence. What he found was worse than he'd imagined. Karen Whitmore had filed 47 complaints with various city departments over the past 3 years. Noise violations, zoning disputes, tree removal requests, property line surveys, building code violations. She'd weaponized every aspect of municipal government. Most disturbing were the patterns. She'd target a family with multiple complaints simultaneously, creating a cascade of bureaucratic nightmares that would overwhelm any reasonable person. The Martinez family had faced 6 separate investigations. In their final year in Maple Grove, the Johnsons had been cited for violations ranging from excessive holiday decorations to unauthorized driveway widening. The Hendersons, who'd moved away just 6 months ago, had been subjected to 3 different city inspections of their home-based business before finally giving up and relocating. Marcus also discovered that Karen had been elected HOA president. In an uncontested election where only 12 residents had voted, she'd then systematically appointed her allies to key positions, creating a board that rubber-stamped her decisions while maintaining the appearance of democratic process. But the most revealing discovery was Karen's background. She'd been a city planning commissioner for 15 years before retiring, which explained her intimate knowledge of municipal procedures and her connections throughout the bureaucracy. She knew exactly which forms to file, which officials to contact, and how to make the system work for her purposes. Armed with this information, Marcus called David Chen the next morning. "I need you to file a federal civil rights complaint," he said. "Karen Whitmore has been systematically harassing residents based on discriminatory criteria. She's created a pattern of disparate treatment that violates fair housing laws." "That's a serious allegation," David said. "Do you have evidence of discriminatory intent?" Marcus pulled up his research. Every family she's targeted has been either single-parent households, recent immigrants, or families with children. She's trying to turn Maple Grove into a retirement community by driving out anyone who doesn't fit her demographic profile. That's circumstantial. We'd need to prove intentional discrimination, which is difficult without recorded statements or witnesses. Then we need to create a record. I want you to file complaints with the State Human Rights Commission, the City Ethics Board, and the Federal Housing Authority. Make her defend her actions under oath. Marcus, this could get expensive, and it might take years to resolve. I don't care. She's declared war on my family and my neighbors. It's time someone fought back. That afternoon, Marcus received the expected notice from the HOA, demanding that he temporarily fill in the pool excavation for safety reasons. The notice gave him 72 hours to comply or face daily fines of $500. Instead of complying, Marcus did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He called a press conference. The local news station had been running a series on HOA overreach, and Marcus's story fit perfectly into their narrative. By Thursday evening, Channel 7's investigative reporter was standing in his backyard, camera rolling, as Marcus explained how one woman's vendetta had turned his dream pool into a neighborhood battleground. Karen Whitmore has used her position as HOA president to systematically harass residents who don't conform to her vision of suburban perfection, Marcus said, looking directly into the camera. She's filed dozens of frivolous complaints, manipulated city processes, and created a climate of fear that has driven multiple families from their homes. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Janet Martinez, held up a thick folder. "We've obtained copies of complaints filed by Ms. Whitmore over the past 3 years. The volume is unprecedented 47 separate complaints against various residents and businesses. She's turned our neighborhood into her personal fiefdom," Marcus continued, "and she's using taxpayer-funded city services to enforce her petty grievances." The story aired that evening during the prim. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when Marcus discovered Emma crying in the pool excavation. His daughter had climbed over the orange safety barriers and was sitting on the concrete steps that led to nowhere, her shoulders shaking. With quiet sobs, the murky water had risen to ankle level from recent rains, and debris floated like broken promises on the surface. "Emma," Marcus climbed down beside her, his heart breaking at the sight of his strong, determined daughter finally cracking under the pressure. "I can't take another semester of this," she whispered. "Every time someone asks about our pool, I have to explain why my father can't build a simple swimming pool in his own backyard. It's humiliating." Marcus pulled his daughter close, feeling the weight of his failure as a protector. "I'm going to fix this. I swear to you." "How?" "She's got the whole system rigged. The city, the HOA, probably half the neighborhood by now. We can't win against someone who controls all the rules." That's when Marcus made the decision that would change everything. If Karen wanted to play by bureaucratic rules, he would change the game entirely. "You're right," he said. We can't beat her at her own game. But what if we didn't have to? 3 hours later, Marcus stood before the Maple Grove City Council during their weekly public comment period. The council chambers had spread through social media that something significant was about to happen. Emma sat in the front row with her friends. Behind them, dozens of Marcus's neighbors filled the seats, including many who'd suffered under Karen's reign but had never spoken publicly before. Karen sat in the back corner, her face a mask of controlled fury. She'd tried to have Marcus banned from speaking, claiming his previous comments constituted harassment, but the city attorney had ruled that public comment periods were constitutionally protected. "My name is Marcus Thompson," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chambers. "6 weeks ago, I applied for permits to build a swimming pool for my daughter. Today, I'm here to expose a pattern of corruption and harassment that has turned our neighborhood into a dictatorship." He'd prepared meticulously for this moment. Emma and her friends had compiled a presentation that laid out Karen's entire operation, the dozens of frivolous complaints, the families driven from their homes, the manipulation of city services for personal vendettas. Karen Whitmore has filed 47 complaints with various city departments in 3 years. Marcus continued, clicking to a slide that showed the staggering numbers. That's more than 1 complaint per month, every month, for 3 straight years. And every single complaint has targeted residents who don't fit her demographic profile: families with children, single parents, immigrants, young professionals. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Several city council members leaned forward, suddenly paying close attention. "But here's what's really disturbing," Marcus said, advancing to the next slide. Ms. Whitmore was forced to resign from the City Planning Commission in 2019. Following an ethics investigation, the details were sealed, but public records show she was using her position to benefit her personal property investments. Karen shot to her feet. "This is defamation. I demand you stop this character assassination immediately." Mayor Rodriguez gavelled for order. "Ms. Whitmore, please be seated. Mr. Thompson has the floor." The ethics investigation revealed that Ms. Whitmore had been manipulating zoning decisions to increase the value of properties she owned. Marcus continued, his voice steady despite the electricity in the room. "She's now doing the same thing as HOA president, using harassment and intimidation to control who lives in our neighborhood." He clicked to a map showing property sales in Maple Grove over the past 3 years. Red dots marked houses where Karen had filed complaints. Green dots showed houses that had sold and been purchased by residents who matched Karen's preferred demographic: or wealthier, childless couples. 23 families have moved away from Maple Grove since Karen Whitmore became HOA president, Marcus said. That's a turnover rate 3 times higher than comparable neighborhoods. And look at who's moving. The average age of new residents has increased by 15 years. Average household income has risen by 40%, and the percentage of families with children has dropped from 60% to 28%. The numbers told the story more clearly than any speech could. Karen wasn't just harassing individual residents, she was systematically gentrifying the neighborhood, driving out families and young professionals in favor of wealthy retirees who wouldn't challenge her authority. "This isn't about property values or community standards," Marcus concluded. "This is about one person using the power of government to reshape an entire neighborhood according to her personal preferences, and it has to stop." The applause was thunderous. Marcus looked back at Karen, who sat frozen in her seat, her face pale with shock. For the first time since this war began, she looked defeated. But Karen Whitmore didn't get to where she was by giving up when cornered. That evening, Marcus's doorbell rang. Through the peephole, he saw 2 police officers and a man in a suit who looked like a detective. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Detective Williams. We need to speak with you about a complaint filed against you today." Marcus's stomach dropped. What kind of complaint? Stalking, harassment, and making terroristic threats against Karen Whitmore. "She's filed for a restraining order and is claiming you've created a campaign of intimidation designed to force her from her home." Marcus opened the door, his mind racing. "That's absurd. I spoke at a public city council meeting. Everything I said is documented fact. Nevertheless, we need to investigate the allegations. Ms. Whitmore has provided evidence of what she describes as escalating, threatening behavior." For the next hour, Marcus found himself defending his actions while Detective Williams took notes. Karen had painted a picture of an unstable neighbor who'd become obsessed with destroying her reputation. She'd documented every public comment, every news interview, every social media post about their dispute, framing them as evidence of stalking. She's also provided photos of you and several other individuals conducting surveillance of her property. Detective Williams said, showing Marcus's pictures taken from Karen's windows. They showed Emma and her friends taking photos of the orange barriers around his pool excavation. They were documenting the harassment I've been subjected to, Marcus protested. Everything they photographed is visible from public property. I understand your position, Mr. Thompson, but from Ms. Whitmore's perspective, she's an elderly woman, being targeted by a group of young people who've made her the focus of an organized campaign. The detective was professional but skeptical, and Marcus realized how Karen had managed to flip the narrative once again. By gathering evidence of every action he'd taken to defend himself, she'd created the appearance of an harassment campaign directed at her. Are you going to arrest me? Not at this time, but I need you to understand that a restraining order is likely to be granted. You'll be required to stay at least 500 feet from Ms. Whitmore's property and cease all public statements about her. After the police left, Marcus sat in his kitchen, staring at the legal documents they'd served him. Karen had managed to turn his act of public accountability into a criminal matter. If the restraining order was granted, he'd be forbidden from attending HOA meetings, city council sessions, or any public gathering where she might be present. Emma found him there an hour later, surrounded by papers and looking defeated. Dad, I heard what happened. This is insane. She's got me backed into a corner, Marcus said. If I fight back, I'm stalking her. If I don't fight back, she wins. Then maybe it's time to stop fighting fair. Marcus looked up at his daughter, surprised by the hard edge in her voice. What do you mean? Emma sat down across from him, her expression more serious than he'd ever seen it. Karen Whitmore has been breaking the law for years. Ethics violations, abuse of office, conspiracy to deprive people of their civil rights. But she's been protected, because she knows how to work the system, and nobody's been willing to challenge her directly. The city council meeting was challenging her directly. No, Dad, that was still playing by her rules. She spent decades learning how to manipulate local government and community organizations. But there's one place where her connections and her bureaucratic expertise can't help her. Where? Federal court. Emma pulled out her laptop and opened a folder filled with research documents. Jake and I have been working with a civil rights attorney in the city. Dr. Sarah Kim specializes in housing discrimination cases. She thinks we have grounds for a federal lawsuit under the Fair Housing Act. Marcus stared at his daughter, amazed by her determination and sophistication. Emma, federal litigation could take years and cost more money than I have. Not necessarily. Dr. Kim works on contingency for civil rights cases, and she thinks this could be a class action suit representing all the families Karen has driven out of the neighborhood. A class action. Think about it, Dad. If we can prove that Karen systematically targeted families with children, immigrants, and young professionals while protecting older, wealthier residents, that's textbook housing discrimination. The penalties could be massive, not just money, but court orders preventing her from ever serving in an HOA leader.